You're walking through the woods at dusk, and you don't feel like a monster. You feel tired. Your knees hurt a little. You're thinking about dinner. But right now, somewhere in the tree line 30 yards away, a deer's heart rate just spiked past what it would hit if a mountain lion walked into that same clearing. A rabbit has already frozen mid-chew. A crow has gone silent and is watching you with one eye. You haven't done anything. You're just standing there, breathing, existing. And every wild animal within earshot has already filed you under the same category. The worst thing in the forest. That's not an exaggeration for dramatic effect. That's measured, published, peer-reviewed science. Across the planet, in ecosystems that still contain lions, wolves, bears, and leopards, wild animals are more afraid of the sound of a human voice than they are of their own apex predators. Not a little more afraid. Sometimes, twice as afraid. So here's the question this video is going to answer. Why does nearly every animal on Earth treat humans like a walking horror movie, when we're slower than a deer, weaker than a chimp, and can't smell a predator from half a mile away like a wolf can? What do they know about us that we've spent the last 10,000 years trying to forget? Start with the story most of us grew up believing, the peaceful hunter-gatherer. Humans as just another animal in the food web, taking what they need, living in some kind of ecological balance with the rest of nature, the circle of life thing Mufasa talked about. It's a comforting image. It's also almost completely wrong, and the animals have known it was wrong a lot longer than we've been willing to admit it. Here's the baseline you need to reset. Every other predator on Earth follows a pattern. Lions take the young, the old, the sick, the slow. Wolves cull the weak from a herd because that's the easiest kill and the safest one. A healthy adult elk can put an antler through a wolf's ribs. This is predation 101. It's why prey populations stay healthy generation after generation. Predators are, in a brutal sense, doing quality control, removing the individuals least fit to reproduce. This has been true for hundreds of millions of years. It's baked into the evolutionary logic of basically every predator-prey relationship on the planet. Then humans showed up, and we broke the rule. A landmark study led by conservation scientist Chris Darimont, published in Science in 2015 and titled The Unique Ecology of Human Predators, compared human hunting and fishing behavior against 2,125 other predator species. The findings were staggering. Humans kill adult prey, the reproductively prime healthiest individuals, at rates up to 14 times higher than any other marine predator, and up to 9 times higher than terrestrial carnivores. We don't cull the herd. We take the biggest, strongest, most reproductively valuable animal we can find, because that's the one with the best rack, the most meat, the most impressive skin. We hunt trophies. No other species on Earth does that. From an evolutionary standpoint, we're not a predator. We're something the rest of the animal kingdom had never encountered before. A predator that behaves like a natural disaster with intent. But here's where it gets complicated. Because it's not just about who we kill. It's about how animals figure out what we are in the first place. And this is where the research gets genuinely eerie. In 2019, ecologists Liana Zanet and Michael Clinchy, working with a team of collaborators, ran an experiment in South Africa's Greater Kruger National Park that's now considered one of the defining studies on this whole phenomenon. They set up motion-triggered speakers at watering holes and played recordings to the local wildlife, 16 species, including elephants, giraffes, leopards, and rhinos. Some speakers played the growls and roars of lions, the region's genuine apex predator. Other speakers played humans, just calmly talking, in a normal conversational tone. No shouting, no gunshots, no screaming. Just people chatting. The animals fled from the sound of casual human conversation at more than twice the rate they fled from lions. They ran faster. They abandoned water sources sooner. This wasn't animals that had bad personal experiences with humans specifically. This was a broad, cross-species, deeply ingrained response. The lion is the actual physical threat standing in that ecosystem, teeth and claws and 800 pounds of muscle. And these animals have decided, on some deep instinctual level passed down through generations, that the sound of a human being making dinner conversation is scarier. Now here's the part almost nobody talks about, and it's the piece that explains why the fear runs this deep. Animals aren't just afraid of what we do. They're afraid of what we represent. A threat that doesn't play by the rules their instincts evolved to predict. Think about what a prey animal's fear response is actually built for. It's built to detect a predator that has to get close. A lion has to stalk within about 30 meters before it charges. A wolf has to run its prey into exhaustion over open ground. Every natural predator on Earth operates within a bubble of physical proximity. Get outside that bubble, and you're safe. That's the rule prey animals' nervous systems are calibrated around. Distance equals safety. Humans annihilated that rule the moment we picked up a spear. A thrown spear extends a human's kill radius by 10, 20, 30 meters beyond arm's reach. A bow does more. Anthropologist and paleoecologist research on early hominin weapon use, including analysis of 500,000-year-old wooden spears found at Schoningen, Germany, and stone spear points from Kathupan in South Africa, dated to around 500,000 years ago, shows that our ancestors were already extending their reach as predators hundreds of thousands of years before modern Homo sapiens even existed. No claws needed, no fangs needed, just an arm, a sharpened stick, and the cognitive ability to plan an ambush. From an animal's perspective, that's not a predator. That's a threat with no detectable edge. Something that can kill you from a distance you can't calculate, using a method your instincts have no template for. That kind of unpredictability doesn't just scare animals. Evolutionarily, it terrifies them in a way that gets hardwired. And it's not only about distance, it's about how we look and sound while doing it. Our upright bipedal silhouette is itself an alarm signal. Researchers studying predator recognition in prey species have found that many animals respond to a vertical, two-legged shape with heightened vigilance, even when they've had zero prior experience with humans. The shape alone reads as wrong against a landscape otherwise dominated by four-legged animals. Add to that our forward-facing eyes, a trait we share with other predators, from owls to wolves to big cats, and one that prey species across the board are wired to flinch from, because forward-facing eyes mean depth perception, and depth perception means something built to hunt, not graze. A rabbit's eyes sit on the sides of its head to watch for danger in almost every direction. Yours sit in the front, binocular, locked onto a single point, exactly like a hawk's. To a deer, you don't just smell wrong and move wrong, you're built like something that hunts. So you've got the shape of a predator, the eyes of a predator, an unnaturally long kill radius, and hunting behavior that ignores the normal rules of natural selection by going after the strongest instead of the weakest. Stack all of that together, and you start to understand why the fear response isn't just strong, it's disproportionate to our actual physical threat, and it makes perfect sense that it would be. Here's the twist though, the part that recontextualizes everything you just heard. This fear isn't a recent development from the age of rifles and trucks and expanding cities. It goes back almost the entire length of our species' relationship with the natural world, and the fossil record shows the moment it started, written in extinction dates. Look at what happened every single time modern humans arrived somewhere new. Not most of the time. Every single time. Australia, roughly 65,000 years ago. Within a few thousand years, the continent lost 85% of its megafauna, including Diprotodon, a wombat relative the size of a small car, and giant flightless birds twice the height of an ostrich. The Americas, around 13,000 years ago, mammoths, giant ground sloths, saber-toothed cats, American lions, all gone within a geological blink after human hunters arrived. New Zealand is maybe the cleanest example, because it happened so recently, and so fast. Polynesian settlers arrived around 1280 AD, and within roughly 100 years, all 9 species of moa, flightless birds, some over 8 feet tall, that had faced zero mammalian predators for millions of years, were extinct. 100 years, that's not evolutionary time. That's living memory. Grandparents who saw moas walking around told their grandchildren about birds that no longer existed. Why did it happen so fast, every single time? Because those animals had never developed a fear response to us. They had no ancestral memory of humans, no instinct telling them a two-legged shape on the horizon meant run. The moa didn't flee. The Diprotodon didn't flee. They approached out of pure curiosity, the same way animals on isolated islands today, the Galapagos for instance, will often walk right up to tourists with no fear at all, because their evolutionary lineage never had a reason to learn otherwise. And that naivety is exactly what killed them, fast and completely, everywhere it existed. Meanwhile, in Africa, where hominins and their ancestors had been slowly ramping up as predators for over 2 million years, megafauna extinctions were much less severe and much more gradual, because African animals had time. Generation after generation, they learned, adapted, and built fear of humans directly into their behavioral inheritance. The elephants and lions and antelope of the Serengeti aren't scared of us by accident. They're scared of us because their ancestors who weren't scared enough didn't have descendants. Now for a story from a completely different corner of biology that reinforces the exact same pattern, and it might be the single most jaw-dropping piece of research on this whole topic. Elephant researcher Karen McComb led a study, published in 2014, testing whether elephants in Amboseli National Park, Kenya, could distinguish between different types of human voices, not just human versus non-human, but specific human identities. She played recorded voices of Maasai men, a group with a cultural history of occasionally spearing elephants in conflicts over cattle grazing, and voices of Kamba men, an agricultural group that rarely comes into conflict with elephants at all. The elephants reacted to the Maasai voices with immediate defensive bunching and retreat. They largely ignored the Kamba voices. Then McComb's team played Maasai women's voices and boys' voices, demographics that don't traditionally hunt or spear elephants, and the elephants relaxed again. These animals weren't just afraid of humans as a blanket category. They were parsing gender, age, and ethnic linguistic identity from voice alone, and calibrating their fear response with almost forensic precision. That is not a simple reflex. That's decades of matriarchal elephant families passing down detailed, specific threat intelligence about which humans are actually dangerous. A living, oral tradition of fear, updated generation after generation, running in parallel to our own oral traditions. Now, the responsible caveat, because this story has an uncomfortable layer worth sitting with honestly. This isn't just a cool fact about animal cognition. It's an active ecological crisis with a name: the landscape of fear. A massive 2018 global review led by ecologist Caitlin Gaynor, published in Science, analyzed 76 studies across 6 continents and found that mammals become, on average, 1.36 times more nocturnal in areas with higher human activity. Even species that are naturally active during the day are shifting their entire daily rhythm just to avoid us, whether we're hunting them or simply hiking near them. That has cascading effects. Animals forced into nighttime activity eat less efficiently, have less time to find mates, and face different predators than the ones their bodies are adapted for. Chronic fear itself, the stress hormones triggered by living under constant threat of a super predator, has been shown in other research to suppress reproduction and immune function in prey species, meaning our mere presence, without a single shot fired, can measurably shrink populations. It's worth being honest that not all human presence is destructive. Ecotourism, protected reserves, and conservation-focused research depend on humans being present in these landscapes too, and some of the same fear response that keeps animals wary of poachers also keeps them wary of areas we've deliberately made dangerous for their protection. But the deeper point stands regardless of intention. Whether we come with a rifle or a camera, most of the animal kingdom has no way to tell the difference at first glance, and their nervous systems have made the safe bet. Assume the worst. Every time. So here's where this leaves you. Standing in a moment you probably never think about this way. You're not a particularly fast animal. You're not particularly strong. You don't have claws, venom, or the kind of camouflage that lets you disappear into a tree line. And yet you carry, wherever you go, an evolutionary reputation that predates your birth by hundreds of thousands of years. A reputation earned by ancestors who figured out that a sharpened stick and a coordinated plan could bring down something 10 times their size, and who then, generation after generation, taught the rest of the animal kingdom exactly what that meant. Every deer that freezes at your footsteps, every crow that goes silent, every elephant that would flee from the sound of your voice before it would flee from a lion, they're not reacting to you personally. They're reacting to an inheritance. A message passed down through millions of individual lifetimes, refined by every single ancestor who guessed wrong and didn't get to pass on their genes, distilled into a single, simple, non-negotiable instinct. When you see the upright shape with the forward-facing eyes, you don't wait to find out what it wants. You run. We like to think of monsters as fiction. Something we invented to scare children around a fire. A shape in the dark that isn't really there. But somewhere out past the edge of your porch light tonight, something with a heartbeat is listening for you. And it already knows exactly what you are. You were never the one telling the scary story. You were always the thing in it.